I'm James Helder. Welcome to Full Court Football 24. Quite privileged to be joined by former Barnet, Gillingham, Nottingham Forest, Leeds United, Watford, Wigan Athletic, Hull City, Middlesbrough, Coventry City, Birmingham City and Sheffield United star Marlon King. What's happening, Marlon? How are you?
You okay, James? Yeah, I'm good, man. That list sounds really long, but now I'm all good.
Indeed. I know it's been trying times for everyone at the moment, but I hope you and your family are all well and all good.
Yeah, I'm based out in Zambia, so to be fair, it's not been too much of a panic out here for whatever reason. But just hope you guys in the UK are all safe.
I want to look back on your football journey today, a little bit about your life as well. You've had a very interesting career. No doubt you've had your ups and downs and stuff, but I'd like to go over the whole journey today, starting with your upbringing. I know you're from Peckham and stuff, so can you give us a little insight into your family dynamic?
Yeah, so basically, I was born and raised in Peckham, South East London, North Peckham, Camden Estate. And that's where I kind of picked up my whole grassroots of being introduced from football and just kind of the real world. I won't say it was a sad, but it was a tough upbringing, and you had to learn fast, you had to think on your feet, and you had to be pretty much streetwise instead of bookwise from where I was from. So football was always embedded in me from like early doors, from a young age.
Have you got a lot of siblings and stuff? Would there have been a big group around you growing up?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's seven of us, and then on my father's side, you got six guys, one girl, and then on my mum's side, she's got family that she's still meeting to this day. So it weren't so much about who's from the same mum and dad when I was growing up. It was just, if you're family, you're family. So if you was a friend or whoever you were, if you was part of the crew, you was part of the clique, you was part of the circle, you were family. You might have a friend that might look similar to you. It was like, that's your brother. That's your brother. It was that kind of, that vibe. You know, things are a bit different now, but when I was growing up, it was more of a community feel. It was more like, you know, getting where you can fit in, and this is your group kind of thing. So that's how I was raised, you know.
What was it like growing up in South London at that time? What was it like for kids on the estate and the whole environment that you was raised in?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's totally different, James, to when I was growing up, and I'm sure a lot of kids, a lot of adults that were growing up in the 90s, the 80s, even the early 70s, it was more of a community feel. So you knew everyone. If I went Brixton, I knew everyone. If I went Peckham, I knew everyone. Now it's, you know, it's a kind of different kind of feel, and it's like a division in terms of like classes. It weren't like that back when I was growing up. It was more like, this is your uncle, this is your cousin, this is XYZ, this is XYZ. So you knew everyone. So you know, you knew familiar faces. You had the old lady, even down to the lollipop lady, or down to the news agents. You had a personal relationship with all these people. So it was a community feel, which is, as I said, it's totally different now. And obviously, with it being a regenerational thing in terms of them knocking down a lot of the estates and stuff and building like more residential homes and more profitable homes in terms of like development. It was just estate block after estate block, bro. It was, from where I grew up, you could go 3 miles from Queen's Road, South London, even New Cross, to all the way up to Elephant Castle, which is like a 3-4 mile run without even hitting the main road. You would go through each and every estate. And I'm sure on each and every estate, you will find somebody who's made it into that kind of celebrity kind of lifestyle. You'll find someone who's come out and made it out from what we used to call the concrete jungle. So it was special, scary. Like, it's mixed emotions, man. It gave us everything. And I think you speak to anybody that came from, whether it be Hackney, Shepherd's Bush, whether it be East London, Ealing, everybody's got their own stories about their upbringing. They will find their special moments because there was less distractions, bro. There weren't no mobile phones, and you had to come in when like the street lights came on. That was our trigger. We didn't have like a phone to set a timer. It was like when the lights come on, you head back in.
How did that initial involvement in football start for you? Where did that spark come from? Where did that moment or that being shown or introduced to the game? How did that happen?
We used to have like local, and I'm sure it's for like loads to cover every side of London, especially. I'm sure like the whole of England will have like community centres. We used to have like a lot of community centres sprinkled around. So after school, whether you've done your homework or not, you hash out what you need to hash out. Sometimes you don't even go to school. You go straight from school. You don't even go home. You go straight to community centre. We used to have a place called the Tech Centre. It's now called the Mola Taylor Centre, which a young boy who unfortunately got stabbed on one of my estates, and it was quite a big kind of media situation. It was quite serious at the time, very serious in terms of knife crime. And yeah, they've called it the Mola Taylor Centre now, and it used to be called Tech, and then we had Blake's, we had Bradfield Boys. We had so many different. You had Moonshot, which was the other side of South London, which was like the Lewisham, Deptford end, that you could go to, pay your 50 pence, get in, and then you've got like indoor kind of setups in terms of like halls. We used to call them halls, and you just get like a big green ball, like a big green tennis ball. Goals, you might have the goals, you might have nets, you might not. You might have to use your jacket for goals, and it was just on and cracking. You pick your teams, and then we just played until the wheels fell off, you know.
What was the first team you played for then? The first organised competitive sport or sporting team that you were involved in?
In terms, London Boys, where the local team called London Boys, and they were kind of the next step up from the kind of state football. It was Saturday and Sunday league. And then they had age groups ranging from under maybe 10s up to adults. So you kind of got in what your age group was, but then you was kind of fast-tracked to where your ability was, if that made sense. Yeah. So you might start off, you might be under 12s, but then you end up paying for the under 16s if you're badding it up, if you're doing really well. And that was the case with me. I just got expedited straight from like really fast, or I find myself playing like 3, 4, 5 games a week because I was covering all different age groups. And there's loads of players that I'm sure that have gone through the same kind of situation. So I'd say London Boys, because that put me on a platform where, like Scott Parker, he played for London Boys, me and him were teammates. And then he actually done, I don't even remember the McDonald's advert. He was he'd done an advert for McDonald's, and then he went sharp and then just kicked on from there. We kind of, and there's quite a few other players, Jason Yule, there quite a few players that came up through that kind of system, playing for Vista. There was quite a few other teams, but it was, if you look at players that didn't make it, a lot of players that were talented, or probably even more talented than I was or Scotty P, they didn't really kick on for some reason or the other, but they were just as gifted. And that Sunday league team was super competitive.
Would you have been playing district football at this age? Would you have been playing for your sort of comprehensive?
Yeah, I played for Blackheath District. So Blackheath District kind of covered the most of South London. And then I played for Inner London and Outer London as well. So we would go and we went to, I remember going to Newcastle. That was the first time that I kind of really been outside of London. Went to Newcastle, and we won the tournament there. And it was very, very, and it was a guy called Dave Goodwin. He used to manage kind of around West Ham. He was a big influence on Rio. And he used to have the district team. So it was just selecting the best kids from the best kind of Sunday teams and local South London schools, going against the North London schools, and then going up to Midlands, and then, yeah, so I was involved in all that stuff.
Would it be from there that you would have got academy trials and stuff? Would you have been watched by scouts at district level, and then the trials would have come from there? How did that process evolve for you?
Yeah and no, because at the end of the day, James, it was a situation where I wasn't privy, or I wasn't privileged to have like mum and dad come to the game. So it was kind of like a self-efficient thing in terms of like me going to games and stuff. Like I would get on the bus myself and then go to games. And do you know what I'm saying? I didn't have mum and dad at home, so I didn't. I came from a broken home. Love my mum and dad to bits, and they both gave me opportunities in different ways. But then I didn't have the kind of the format of mum and dad both being able to afford to come to travel to Newcastle, or to travel to here and that. So it was like, you're on the bus, let us know the result when you get back, kind of thing, if people kind of take it in. So for me, it was, when you say about trials, back then it was like, what parent can get in the coach's kind of ear and a relationship. We didn't have social media, so it was kind of like, it was like a human manipulation in terms of like, let me get close to the coach. If your mum and dad's there every day, you form a bond. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then if you're a kid kind of coming through without parents, it's kind of like you're hoping that they take you in, because there's so many players that have been turned down by clubs that have gone on to have amazing careers. So, and a lot of players that didn't make it but had the platform when they were younger, based on the kind of safety net they had with the parents being able to buy them the necessary stuff and putting on the coats and standing next to the coaches and being at every game. That was a massive advantage nowadays. Nowadays, back then, nowadays, you don't have that kind of advantage, because everything is on an exposed platform. We can see whether you're playing bad. We can see whether you're playing good. Now, if I were back then in the 80s and 90s, if I was going to play away at a game, how would you find out how I performed? I'd have to come home and tell you. So that was the difference between now and then. Back then, it was kind of like, do you understand what I'm saying, James? It was, we didn't have this exposure, man, this video links and Instagram of you doing coaching and seeing how a player performed or putting up the results. We had to go on teletext, and teletext weren't even in, like, back in the days. So I'm sounding old now, but I'm just giving you the reality in the terms of how we could make it, in terms of without that support network. I didn't have that support network, so I kind of had to grind and get in where I could fit in, kind of thing,
How did that opportunity then come up for you with Barnet? How did you evolve to get into that situation, or what was the circumstances that enabled you to get that chance?
So basically, when I was about 14, 15, I went to Millwall, which is my local team. They were first division back then, which was classed as a Premier League at the time. And they used to train at a ground called like Red Lion training, which was around the corner for me in Bermondsey, being a Peckham boy. And Mick McCarthy was the manager. And then they had trials, and then I'll go to the trials. And then at that time, you had the YTS scheme system. So it's a youth training scheme. which runs for 2 years. I think it's different now. I think, what is it? Academy now? It's academy, isn't it? It's like an academy base now, isn't it? Yeah. So you don't really get to get that long period of time. It's like you got to come in, clean your pros boots. It's like a job. You're on £52, 45 pounds a week, but you've got to fight for that position. So they will choose maybe 20 players, and then you've got 2 years to prove yourself. So I went to trial out just to get a YTS scheme at Millwall. Got turned down. Went back. Then I took up. I went back to college. Got a job at Domino's Pizza. Driving a little moped, 15, 16. In the snow and whatever, and I was grafting, and I went down to Dalajamnet, and then from like 15, went Dalajamnet. I played reserve games. I was up front with like Steve. I don't know if Steve, you remember Steve Watts. He was the guy who won the million. I can't remember. He won the 100 grand trial thing with Leighton Orient. He had it's my boy Stevie Watts. He if you Google him, he made his career based off an advert, and me and him were up front for the reserves, and I was scoring like 3-4 goals a week, James, no word of a lie, for Dalajamlet as a 15-year-old, drafted into the first team, and I weren't quite 16, and then what happened was they couldn't sign me on professional terms, not professional terms, but as like an adult terms until I turned 16, so they were waiting. But in this time of me scoring all these goals, they were getting contacted from other professional clubs, which one I found out later was Wimbledon. And at that time, they were in the first division, which is kind of like the Premier League. They had Dennis Wise and Koku, all those players, Damien Francis, Jason Yule, all those guys, they wanted to sign me. But when they contacted Dulwich Hamlet didn't tell me because they wanted me to sign something so they could charge Wimbledon, because I wasn't 16. But luckily I found out about Barnet. Barnet were like, no, come down on the trial, whatever. And I found out through a friend. And I said, no, this is, they're in the third division, which I think would be League One, League Two, something like that. I said, no, I'm going to go. So I didn't turn up to training. The managers at Dalajam were calling, where are you? We need you to sign, like, you're going to be 16 soon. We need you to sign his contract. I said, no, I'm at Barnet, because I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. Went there, done a few weeks trial. Then they signed me on a YTS, youth training scheme. And I had a pro, which was Ken Charlery. I had to bring him a newspaper, a water, and clean his boots every day. It was a proper job. Like, I was getting in at like 7:30 in the morning. I was finishing at about 4 o'clock. They used to throw mud on the walls, and back then it was totally different. The facilities weren't the best, but it was such an education to me to give me the values in terms of what the graft is all about, And after about 3 months, I played a few youth team games. They drafted me to reserves. Then I kicked on to the first team. I was about 16, 17. They signed me on a 4-year or 5-year pro. And then I didn't look back from there, really. So kind of went in stages.
Could you see the levels, going up the levels from playing, like you said, at Dulwich Hamlet to then playing at Barnet? Did you see a big step up in quality and in terms of professionalism as well? Because I'm guessing in the sort of amateur game, anything can happen at any time.
Yeah. Do you know what I found? Which I'll say this to you, James. What I found was people were less. They were less privy to how they looked, and it was about more. And the higher I went up, it was less about what boots and what colour boots you had on, and how many step overs you can do, to the basics of the game. And that was a culture shock for me, because it was like, when I went to train and I had silver boots, I had to tell a lie. Nike Tiempos, Ian Wright's the one with the big tongue that flipped over the front. And if your first touch went on point when you went from non-league to first league, you can get away with it non-league, because you can just have a bad first touch and then run after it and then try and recover yourself. Whereas as you go higher up, you get punished. So it becomes less important about how you look, how your hair's done, what the colour of your boots, and how high your shin pads and the black tape you got around your socks. It became more about the basics of the game. So, you know, when you're quick, you're fast, you're strong. There's so many players like that in the lower leagues, but they haven't studied the game in terms of the basics, making sure that your first touch is number one rule. Get your first touch off, everything else will pop off after that. And it took me a while to learn that, because I'm like, you want to just, whether you're nervous or whatever, you want to try and show how good you are too soon. Whereas as time goes on, you learn, like, from kickoff, make sure that your first touch is okay, play a simple pass, and then you build from there. You build your confidence and you earn the right to start doing step overs or whatever. So that was the big difference in terms of what I learned from going from Dulwich Hamlet to, even I say Barnet, even though ability-wise, like, a lot of players were quick, a lot of players were strong, but there was a slight difference in terms of the mentality of thinking.
What was it like then with Barnet signing your first professional contract? Can you remember that day and that moment, and how things sort of manifested for yourself?
You want me to be totally honest with you? I'll tell you this, James. Like, I didn't understand what was happening to me, because I was always a kid that had one mind on football and another mind on where I came from. So it was kind of a thing where, even when I signed my first contract with Barnet, I think I can openly tell you this, I think it was about 350 quid a week back in 96, 97. But at that time, a lot of my friends were doing things that were higher scale than me, in terms of buying cars and going Ibiza and stuff like that. So I actually had a job while I turned pro. I didn't tell Barney, but I got myself, like, when we had pre-season, when we was off for pre-season, I got myself a job, because I wanted to top up. So see, if I was earning, I wanted to round it off to 500 to 600, 700. So I got myself a job. I was driving, I remember I'd done a job. I was driving those little monkey bikes. They were fold-up monkey bikes, right? You fold them up. You go. It was a concierge service in Streatham, and you will go and say, like, you go out, you drive in your car, and you had too much to drink, you didn't want to drive home.
Yeah.
We will come on a little monkey bike. I'm telling you, it's like it's lower than a BMX, but with an engine. Drive on the A2, the A1, come and pick you up, fold up the bike, put the bike in the boot, yeah?
You know the worst
take you home, and then take...
I remember,
that's what I was doing.
I remember this service. I remember this thing. I remember it very well. I remember it very, very well. Unbelievable.
That's who I used to work for while I signed pro. So I was grafting, because I didn't believe, like, this football life was giving me the enough to do what I was doing. I was making moves. I moved out of my house when I was 14. Got my own place when I was 16. So I wasn't one of those kids that had the privilege of having mum and dad support me for a long period of time. I had to kind of learn on my own. So when I got my first pro contract, everybody would say that, oh, you made it. For me, in my head, I was like, I still kind of need to make moves to make sure it gives me the life that I want. Because I felt like it was a fantastic opportunity at Barnet, but don't get me wrong, I was going back down. I was still getting myself into problems. So it was a conflict of interest in terms of where I was at. You know, it gave me a grounded education, but then it kept me too close to reality, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Who was your first manager at Barnet?
John Still.
How did you get on with him?
Sergeant Bilko.
Sergeant.
Do you know what? To be honest, and I can say this. I can happily say this now. He gave me my opportunity, but it was very, very. He was a massive disciplinarian, and he was old school. And I didn't get, because, and I'll say this, James, because I wasn't used to people telling me what to do. It was very difficult for me to bond with him because he was it's his way or the highway. And I was a young kid with not a chip on my shoulder, so to speak, but I was a young kid, whereas whether I have Barnet or I don't, it wasn't something that was going to dictate what direction I wanted to go mentally. So I found myself I'll give you one. I don't know how long we got on this, but I'll give you. Have we got enough time?
Well, as long as you want, mate. Yeah, you carry on. Got
Right. All right. So basically, I got drafted into the first team, and at that stage, older players always kind of got the privilege over younger players. So you could be a young player, and I was a young player scoring goals, but I always was behind the Darren Currys and the Ken Charleries and the Scott McLeishers, and if they could go 4 or 5 games without and I will come on, I'll score, and I will still be on the bench. And then after the games, if you didn't come on, you'd be running your socks off. That's how it was. I found like the lower you went down is the more running you done. I'm just telling the truth. One game, he broke me. I must have scored, I don't know how many goals coming on and whatever for Barnet. I kind of kicked on, and I still weren't starting. And then what it would do, if you played less than 45 minutes, you had to do like some hard runs after. After the change room, he got me in the change room. He came, right, all the subs out, let's go running. So I'm not doing it today. I just refuse. And this is not a right way to think. I tell the youngsters out here all the time, it's not the right mental attitude to have. But I was broken in terms of, I felt like I deserved a shot. Even at like 17, I felt like I was good enough to play because I was coming on scoring. Come in the change room, the assistant manager called me. He says, no, you got to get changed, you got to go out. I said, you know, I'm not. I just got in the shower and I got changed. My dad was in the stands. He comes in raging. Oh, you king, you're this, you're that, you're this and that. I was like, listen, do one. Not interested. This is at 17. And it was a mindset of mine, whereas I wasn't really listening. Like, and he was like, okay, sort of thing. I can go into the words that I said and make it more dramatic, but to cut a long story short, coming training on Monday, he makes me train back with the youth team, back and tearing it up again. Because right now, when my back's against the wall, that's when I kick on even more. So I'm super, super amped, scoring goals. They play Peterborough, and you can Google this. And in reserve games, I'm banging in goals. They ain't picking me. Everyone's going, nah, Kingy needs to be involved back in the first team. They play Peterborough, local derby. They are 6-0 down at half-time. I'm in the stands. And at half-time, usually a manager gets like all the pros and the people around the first team, if you're in the squad, to come down to the change room to kind of give moral support. Grazioli, at the time, scored about 4 goals, they're 6-0 down. I can hear the gaffer going, you guys, you're making it difficult for me to leave out this little such and such. He's talking about me. Everyone's nudging me like, and he's raging. I'm looking for the little glass. Everybody is like laughing, kind of, but nudging me like, oh, Kingy, he's talking about you. He's like, you're making it impossible. I want to teach this guy a lesson. And look what you're doing to me. You're embarrassing me. And I'm standing there, I'm thinking, is this I'm telling you, James, I swear, no word of a lie. So he's drafted me back in maybe the week after, because it was, the fans started to get cheesed off now. And so he drafted me back in, scoring goals. Then we come to the end of the season. So I go away with my brother. We go to Jamaica and I come back. And then next minute, I've got 3 clubs to choose from to go to. I'm only 18, 19. My dad calls me. You can go Millwall, who released me, Gillingham, or you can go Swansea. So I was like, I didn't even know where Swansea was at the time. I'm telling you, I was an ignorant little kid. Do you know what I'm saying, James? All I knew was South London, back to wherever I was going, even at Gillingham, straight back down the A1, the A2, straight back down to South London. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to go Millwall because they released me. That's how bitter I was. I was like, no, I'm not going Millwall. So my dad was like, listen, they've agreed $250,000 with some add-ons. You got a choice of 3 clubs. I said, take me to Gillingham. They'd just been promoted from to the Championship. I said, that's cool. So I went to Gillingham, and that's when I kind of met up with that whole situation there.
You're going into Gillingham as a big signing, big for the club. It's a first real sort of move for yourself. First big, big money as well. All the pressure. How do you think you initially handled? How do you think you initially handled that moment?
I didn't handle it. Do you know why, James? Because I didn't realise what was happening to me. I was still a street kid playing football on a Sunday, if that made sense. I was still having fun with it. I didn't know, and nobody was in my ear to tell me how to separate from being kind of like a street kid from being a professional footballer. And I didn't realise how fast things were escalating for me, because I came up through the non-league kind of situation, and I didn't have that kind of older brother to say to me, look, Marl, you got to chill. You got straight after training, back down to South London, back down to Peckham, back down to Brockley, back down to Luton. Straight. I didn't understand. I didn't know how to separate myself. So that's my advice to these kids now. Like, they need to know how to turn that switch off and say, nah, whatever people think, this is my journey. This is what I'm doing, and these are the sacrifices I need to make. I didn't do that. So when I signed for Gillingham, and I'll tell you another story, James. I don't want to bore you guys too much. My first pre-season, guess what my first pre-season was? At Gillingham. Just signed. No one hardly knew me, for a club that just been promoted into the Championship as a youngster. Guess where our first pre-season was?
Where?
Just have a guess.
I'm going to say the Algarve, somewhere like that.
Try Iron Napa.
Wow. And at the time, Iron Napa, like you say, it's like you couldn't get anywhere. You couldn't pick a better place for yourself than Iron Napa, could you? At the time, Iron Napa was absolutely having it.
I was saving up to go there. And I weren't just... when you go there, it's not even like pounds. You'd be sending back home for money and be calling your mum for money just to up, like, because of the drinking sessions and whatever. So my first pre-season, we stayed in Larnaca. Now, anybody that knows that kind of situation, Larnaca is like 45 minutes from Iron Napa. So when I get there, I've just signed 250 grand in 2000 was relatively a lot of money for a new club, for a youngster that no one really heard of. So I get there, Naira Noseworthy, Nugsy, really good friend of mine now. He came up through Gillingham, the youth ranks and whatever. He's established kind of there, and he's coming up similar age. He's from Brixton, I'm from Peckham. So we used to drive each other in, whatever. We get to Iron Napa. Bear in mind, when we're on the plane, that's the first time I meet my teammates. Because my pre-season, right, you know where this is going, is in Iron Napa. So we get there, and me and Naira, we look at each other, we go, Iron Napa's only down the road. And we ain't got training because we landed about maybe 2-3 o'clock, about 6 o'clock. Me and Naira, right, God forbid us, we go and hire 2 mopeds. You're not allowed to ride mopeds as a professional football, just for insurance reasons. I'll just put that out there. Don't do it, kids. It's not right, but I'm just giving you my story. So we go, we hire the mopeds, we bring them back to the hotel, we park them around the back of the hotel. We get We wait until about 11 o'clock, and because usually like the gaffer and the manager are sitting down in the lobby, they're having a drink. We wait. We go. We get on the mopeds. We drive in to Iron Upper. We get to Iron Upper. It's on fire. Squares lit. Everywhere's popping off. And we saying to each other, look, we're only going to be here 2-3 hours. Now, that weren't ever going to happen, right? We start drinking Jack Daniels and Coke. We have one. All right, this is our last one. All right, yeah. Get 4 o'clock in the morning. We are half cut. Me and Nara, look, we got to go. So we say, all right, we're going to go. Well, it's daylight now. Bear in mind, my first training session's in like 2 hours, 3 hours, right? So we go, we're driving, it's 45 minutes, but you're like, you go in, it's hot, it's cold, it's hot, it's cold. That's what the journey's like. You get that breeze, get back to the hotel. Nyron comes up with a great idea. Let's sleep in our training kits. Let's get an hour's sleep. We'll sleep in our training kits. When we got the alarm, we'll just get up, get our boots, go down and get on the coach. Perfect. So we get changed when we get back at the hotel into our, this is my new kit now, right? My new Gillingham kit. Guess what? So I said, Naren, you set your alarm? Yeah, I set it. I wake up, look at the time. Bus leaves at 7:30. It's now 8:15. Panic up. Running. Get packing up, shut the door, get down into the lobby. Coach is gone. James, this is my first ever introduction to my teammates. I get in a taxi with Nyron. We drive about 15 minutes to the training ground. All the lads, the gaffers just clapping like that. Now, I'm not used to that banter, so I don't know what they're clapping about, right? They're clapping. So Gaffer walks over to us, and the assistant manager, right, guys, just get changed. Nyron's got his head down. He's put his boots on. I go to put my boots on, James. Guess what? My boots are back at the hotel.
Oh, killer.
My boots are back at the hotel. So they're waiting for me. All the boys are waiting to warm up together. Everyone's like, who's this little kid? Who's this little one? Right, what's happening? So I pulled the assistant manager's come out. I said, look, I forgot my boots. He's gone, all right, look, take mine. I've looked down. He's got on size 11 Copamon doors, right? And they're that thin, right? And he's pulled the laces tight. I'm a size 9. He's a size 11. My first training session is with the assistant manager's football boots, yeah? That are 2 sizes too big. He goes, no, just borrow mine. He goes, Kingy, just borrow mine. You're just going to have to get through it, mate. We're not happy with you, but just going to have to get through it. Put the boots on. Guess what? I'm on flames. I've got these flipping canoes on, right? I'm ripping the shit out of the defenders. I'm so lively. And I've had like 30 minutes sleep. I'm half drunk. I've got an assistant manager's boots and I'm on fire. Gaffer pulls me after. He goes, Kingy, don't do it again. But you know what? When we sell you, you're going to give me commission for keeping faith in you. That was his first words to me because I had never met him before. So that was my introduction to kind of the higher league championship football.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Pick me up from there then. So you got off to a sort of a rough start. You were straight into the team. Were you playing regularly for Gillingham from the outset?
Yeah, well,
how did that work?
Well, we had like Bobby Taylor, Carla Saba, Ify Anora. Back then it was kind of like, it was rankings. It was like, for you to break into a first team, it was a bit more difficult because as a youngster, because it was almost like the experienced players were always going to get the nod before you. So they will have a bit more allowance because of their experience. So if they have 2 or 3 bad games, you weren't expected to play. Whereas if you had like 1 bad game as a youngster, the experienced pro is going to come on because the gaffer is going to be like, So I had like Carla Saba, I had Bob Taylor, I had Ify Anora, Adi Akinbaye just left. So I had like a stream of strikers that were in front of me before I could quite get a a regular run in the team. So it's frustrating. I mean, like, even down to grassroots football, you can't really express yourself after 3 or 4 games. You've got to get that confidence and know that you can make errors or you can have a half-decent game to be starting again for you to get your full confidence. So it took me like half a season to kind of get up and running. Even though I was nicking 1 or 2 goals here and there, I still had like the more experienced pros in front of me.
Start of the next season, did you feel that you had integrated well with your teammates? Did you feel that you was becoming a core part of the squad at Gillingham? I know, as you say, as a young player, it's hard to get that trust and that stability. But did you feel you had made that step quite easily?
Yeah, from when I first signed. If you ask anyone about me, even when I joined Gillingham, I was telling the Carlos Sabers, I'm coming for your shirt. So if I was wearing number 16, I'm saying I want that number 9. That was the confidence that I had. My mental capacity wasn't built on somebody telling me I was good enough. I was telling them that I'm coming for your shirt, and they might laugh it off. But if you ask Carlos Sabes, if you ask him, he'll tell you from that young age, I was telling him I'm coming for you, and he had been an experienced pro for a long time and playing a lot. He had like players, and I shouldn't say this in terms of, I wouldn't recommend any young to say that, but I was like telling players where I might have had 5 Pro League games, telling players that have 300-400 league games that they're shit. That was my kind of capacity, because I didn't know how to dissect or allow somebody to get into my mind frame of thinking to make me feel like I'm beneath them. And it was kind of like my Achilles heel in terms of sometimes I was overconfident. So that's why I was taking the risk, and maybe that's why I found myself into situations where other people wouldn't have found themselves into. If that makes sense.
At this point, are you still leading that double life in terms of you're a professional footballer, you're training every day, but are you still kind of on your ends a lot? Are you still mixing with your old friends that you grew up with? Are you still in the same circles and kind of bringing in money from ways that you maybe shouldn't have been bringing in money at that time?
Yeah, I can be totally honest with you and said that football, for me, James, wasn't my like only calling in terms of where my mind was at. So I knew how to adjust to other situations outside of football. So it was a case of I was confident within myself that I would survive whatever given situation that was put in front of me. And that was, as I said, that was a pro in terms of taking yourself outside of your bubble and your comfort zone. But it was a con in terms of getting to not knowing how to separate yourself and switch off and being disciplined enough to say, this is the route I want to take and certain sacrifices I need to make. So it's kind of, it was like a conflict of interest in terms of grafting, kind of hustling, kind of had my ear, my eye outside of the game, but then I was still trying to make a career inside of football, and then it just kind of clashed. And it's taken me it took me a long time for me to manage one or the other.
Can you talk to me about that moment when things combusted for you at Gillingham, where things came to a head, where your outside football activities then started to have a bearing on your footballing career?
Yeah, it was crazy. I think that was the first time it kind of hit me to say, and it weren't even so much of me going to prison at Gillingham. It was because I was kind of a little bit of a delinquent before that in terms of getting myself into problems from when I was at 15, from younger than that. So with the law, that wasn't new. It was like when it hit newspaper and the way it was put in terms of like being a protege kind of potential kind of stuff, the way it was spoken, I was like, rah. they're talking about me. I didn't think that no one even knew me. And that's how crazy it was. I didn't think anyone kind of knew who I was. I thought I was just going under the radar. I was going Gillingham, scoring a couple of goals or whatever, and then going back and then being the guy who I was around the people that I grew up with. So when I hit the paper, I was like, why is it in the paper? Why is it in the newspaper? It's not even big news. That was my kind of mindset towards things. So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of my introduction to the whole media kind of spotlight, so to speak.
How long would you have spent in prison while you was contracted to Gillingham? So like, how did it work? Did they just say like you're going to be in prison for this amount of time? Like how?
Nah, it was basically like I got done for handling stolen goods, and it was, how can I put it? They wanted me to tell them where I got the vehicle from. The vehicle that I bought was super hot, and the way it was done, it was super kind of set up. So who were the names? And I just weren't prepared to kind of give up any sort of names, and they just hit me with a book, and they gave me 18 months, and then we appealed, and then I'd done 5 months. I was supposed to do 9. I'd done 5 on appeal. And then when I came out, it was straight back to training. So it was on a loudspeaker. I was in reception in jail, loudspeaker. So I came to the governor's office. He said, look, you've won your appeal. I didn't even know. Won your appeal. Then I had a car, the chairman, Paul Scully, had a car pick me up, went to the training ground, and he was trying to tell me, no, he had a house, he had some houses built at Priestfield Stadium, at the stadium. He was like, no, you're going to stay there. I said, no, I'm not staying there. That was and it's not, we talk about it now, and it wasn't the right mindset to have, because I saw his way of thinking of being protective over me. But my mindset was still geared to going back to what I thought was the most comfortable environment for me. So it took me ages to understand the transition of what was happening to me. And he was like, no, you got to stay. I said, Chairman, look, I'm not. So they're like, no, okay, these are restrictions. And I was I was training, and then came back, hit the ground running, started scoring goals, ended up being top goal scorer, and then moved on to Nottingham Forest. So it was so fast. Like every time I got myself into a problem, I never really got time to either talk about it or think or process of what was happening or how people perceived me, because it was like, it's not like I had a period out. The longest period I had out was like through injuries, and even when I had my jail sentences, it was like I was put back into a position where it's like, right, I need to focus on training and scoring as many goals and doing well for my teammates. So I never really got time to kind of process it, you know?
I just want to get a look into your mindset, because you've gone from obviously being a young protege to then being in jail. No doubt you would have had friends or similar people of a mindset around you in jail. So your environment, you've adapted, you're making yourself comfortable in that environment, to then come back out to play football on tag, and then to end up top goal scorer for the team. Your mind, I just want to take a look at your mindset at that moment, how you approached that coming out of jail.
It was my mindset. It never changed. It was, okay, this has happened, and I feel like when my back's against the wall, that's when I respond. When I respond the most. I get. It's like when you're comfortable, that's when you press that self-destruct button. When I'm uncomfortable, that's when I perform my best. So it's kind of like when I've got everything that I want and I've achieved everything I want and I'm in that zone, it's almost unnatural for me. Like, this ain't normal, man. Like, I'm not from this. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. I need to do something to upset the apple cart, because I like to start from the bottom, from the ground up, and grind and get to the top. So whenever somebody doubts me or I don't go into that self-pity mode. My mode is zoning out and going, right, I'm going to crack on now. So you think this is what it is. I'm going to show you this is what it is. And as I said, it was like an Achilles heel for me, James. It was a pro in the sense of it's a great mindset to have, to be able to pick yourself up when you fall down. But when you start standing up, you start running, you feel like you can slow down and get comfortable. So my advice to like any young kids or whatever will be like, when you start feeling comfortable, start making or find yourself to make yourself feel uncomfortable in a positive way. Start testing yourself. Can you push for more? Don't settle for what you've got. And that's kind of my whole mind. That's what my mindset was. It was like, I'll have prison officers telling me, "Oh, what you running?" I'd have the whole prison yard doing workouts with me. And they were like, well, what are you working out for? Your career's over. And I'm telling you, but your career's not even started. That's how cocky I was even in jail. That was my mindset. Like, I know I'll have, and then I've got my wife or my agent on the phone, like, this club wants you, that club wants you, even while this is all going on. And so for me to process, to kind of process that I'm struggling or that I'm in a bad situation or I've done wrong, I didn't get the time to do that because I knew that I had the capabilities, I had the abilities to grit down on my gum shield and just grind and get back to where I was. I'll be looking at the newspapers, I'll be looking at the TV and going, that guy's not better than me. Which one I get out? I'm going to show. That was my mindset. It was bonkers, James. You know what I'm saying? So it was a pro and it was a con for me because that's why I felt like every time I built myself up and I got myself where I should have maintained, I kind of thought, it took my foot because I can get myself out of it. So I don't need to worry about it, kind of, Jack. You know what I mean?
Nottingham Forest signed you for just under £1 million. Quite a good return on the 250k Gillingham outlaid for you as well, considering you've had a prison stretch halfway through your contract with them, which I'm guessing probably knocked quite a lot of significant value off of your transfer resale price in hindsight. I don't know. Maybe it increased it. I don't know. What do you think?
It didn't really. I don't know. I've never looked at it like I don't. All those things I don't really care about. It's never been a thing. I wanted to go to Forest because the big stadium and the bigger club, and it was kind of, obviously it was more money. So in terms of the transfer fee, it wasn't really important to me. Whether that was a hindrance or not, that wasn't something that was processed in my mind at the time. I never thought, oh well. I never looked at the media or ratings and then I was never one of those guys to kind of get beat up myself. Like, I can happily jump on Instagram if someone, I don't know about trolls and I don't know about, so all of these things weren't processed because in my head I was like, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to get. And at the time, I think it was kind of like they wanted to do a payment term with Gillingham. I think it was like 1.3, something like that. And the gaffer said to me, look, they want to do 1.3, but they want to do it over the terms, or they can offer 950 cash. So then I think the chairman went for that because for whatever reason, just for the cash flow at Gillingham at the time. So that weren't even kind of my choice when I went in the change room and kicked off the door. It was, well, we've got other clubs interested, but Forest's going to pull up. So when I went there, the whole big club scenario and stuff, I didn't know how to adjust to, man. I went there and that's one of the clubs that I wish I should have smashed it for. I should have smashed it for them. One of my good friends, Marlon Harewood, I speak to him all the time. He just left. David Johnson there and stuff. And it was kind of not overwhelming, but I didn't, it was that word of being comfortable again. Got comfortable, I got a 4-year contract. I was on a lot of money for a youngster and I was going through the mills and I kind of turned it on when I kind of wanted to, when I lost that kind of hunger. And that's that's another key element I can tell you, and I can tell these kids. can't lose that. You can't lose that. Ever feel comfortable. Once you feel comfortable, start finding positive ways to make yourself feel uncomfortable. To find that way to find that hunger to make you perform at your best. Because I believe like once you got that hunger and that grit in your teeth, that's when you perform at your best. When you get comfortable, things start going pear-shaped. And that's one of the episodes in my career that I look back in terms of like Nottingham Forest that I wish, because I know I would have ripped up for them. I played against them so many times, always scored against them. After that, you know, I went to Watford and the rest was history kind of thing. And you'll see like a pattern, what I'm talking about, James, in terms of how my career went and how my mindset is.
At this stage of your career, you're being very well paid. You've come from a background where you haven't had it easy. You haven't had that support network. You haven't had that financial freedom and that ability to relax. Do you think having that such a well-paid job and rightly so, at such a young age, do you think that took away your hunger, Marlon? Do you think that took away that little bit of grit or that little bit of spite that you were driven for before to have them little bit of extra things? Do you think that need for that just subsided a little bit with the wages that you're receiving?
Yeah, not even just the wages. It's just the whole lifestyle. Like, I think, and I'll be honest with you. Like, you can look at mine. You can look at a lot of like paid athletes or athletes that have had a good career and stuff. Once they start getting comfortable, and you can go right to the top, and you lose the hunger for what it is you're doing, that's when things will start going left. So for me, it was kind of like, right, I'm going to get to this place. I'm mentally built up. Right, I'm going to get to my place. But the importance is how you sustain that level of consistency. What part of your mindset can you tap into to make sure that you tick? Because a player doesn't come a bad player overnight. Like when they talk about someone like Danny Drinkwater, at Leicester he was on fire. You know, so many players. He goes to Chelsea, he gets in the comfort zone, he starts spiraling. You understand what I'm saying? He needs to go back to what got him to that place. Like I'll say to all the youngsters, that when you feel too comfortable, start making yourself feel uncomfortable in a positive way. Start finding things or reminding you of yourself, what it took to maintain that hunger. Okay, and that's, if you look at the journey of my career, it went up, down, up, down, up, down, and it always went down when I was doing well. That's the fucking. Sorry, can I? Sorry, if I go.
No, you're cool.
Yeah, that was the kind of my kind of journey, and it was like I had to find the happy medium to try and maintain the consistency of quality and what I was doing and quantity, without finding myself in a negative mindset. The mindset is key, man. The power of the mind is huge. So I wouldn't even say it's so much about money. I just felt like, right, I scored 30 goals. I'm gonna do it next season. Instead of I need to do it next season, I'm gonna do it next season. And that's the difference. Well, if I've got a contract for 30 grand a week, don't worry, I'm gonna get that next year. Instead of, well, I'm 1 year down, I need to like add another year. I need to perform to get me another year. Those are the final margins that you need to sustain that level of consistency.
You had a short-term loan with Leeds United as well. Quite interesting. Again, another big club with a big history. What was it like for yourself leaving Nottingham Forest to go out on loan to Leeds?
I went out mid-season, so I think it was like the last 10 games of the season. So it was kind of like Gary Megson at the time was at Nottingham Forest. He was like, "No, look, go out to Leeds. They want you over. Kevin Blackwell wants you over there." And then I got there, as you said, big club. We had the players like Kieran Dyer, Lucas Radaby, like they were just coming down from the Premier League to kind of Championship. So Leeds is another club, massive following, great city. But at that time they were like in their transition. So I kind of, when I went there, I went from striker to playing right wing.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had Kevin Blackwell had Rob Hulse up front, but then they had a first team coach, AD Boothroyd, who used to take the players that weren't starting in the first team. So me, Aaron Lennon, even Michael Dubry was there. Radaby. Now our reserve team was stronger than the first team, but obviously the gaffer had his ways of playing, and if you saw the bench at that time, very strong. I think Azza went on to Tottenham. Killer, he went on somewhere else. You know, it was kind of like seeing out the season. And then I met AD, who was the first coach. He used to put on quality sessions. Great man manager. And we used to just rip it up in training. Like when we used to do 11v11, the gaffer used to like stop sessions because he would tell us like, no, this is not a real game. This is just 11v11. We're trying to get the tactics across because we used to obviously have a chip on our shoulder and we wanted to. And then whenever I did play for Leeds, it was like on the right wing. It weren't my position. So, yeah, it was a great experience, but it weren't at the right circumstances.
Returning back to Nottingham Forest, having had that Leeds spell, are you then thinking, I'm going to be leaving soon? Or you've had that loan experience, or are you thinking, I'm going to get back, try and get my head down, try and cement a place in the Forest first team?
No, I didn't, because from once the gaffer said to me, I was having my firstborn child, and the gaffer told me, no, I can't go. And I said, well, you're going to have to find me because I'm going to see my child being born.
Really?
I knew at that time that me and him weren't going to click. And I already, James, bear in mind, at that time, I already started making my investments outside of football. So my mindset wasn't based on what a manager thought he could hold against me in terms of financially, because I already started making property investments, buying houses at auctions. I was already privy to what was happening outside of football. So it was very difficult. I was a difficult person to get through in terms of like trying to discipline me, which is another pro and a con, because my head was already outside of the game. So when he told me that, I was like, well, no, I've lost all respect for you. I'm going anyway. If you're going to rip up my contract, is what it is. And then come the summer, I get a call from AD Boothroyd. He got the Watford manager's job. Nobody knew about him, and it was his first job. Watford just got relegated from the Premier League. A lot of players left. So he was rebuilding. Like, no, Kimi, I want you down here. I know what you can do. You know, I believe in you, X, Y, Z. Then I had Ben Hoddle ring me up at Wolves.
Wow.
It was like, come. And then he got me a taxi up to Wolverhampton training ground. They just had their new training ground. You know, you had Paul Ince there. You had like loads of different players. He was like, I want to sign you. So I had a choice. Who else? I had Warnock. He was at, where was he at the time? I think QPR. He wanted me. So I had a choice to make. And then Forest kind of said, no, we don't want to sell you. We'll loan you out. So all these teams come in. So I said, you know what? And then AD was like, listen, I want you to play every week. I'm going to give you're going to be my number 9. And that was enough for me. I was like, all right, well, yeah, let's do this. And then he started bringing in other players. And the players he were bringing in, he weren't players. He was bringing in players with points to prove and unknown players. And the rest is history. I'll tell you a story. Like one of my best mates, I was just on the phone to him maybe a few hours ago, Ashley Young. He was a trialist in the change room when I got into Watford. Wow. He'd been released from Watford. So he basically was like, oh, Youngie, come in. You can train with us because you live in Stevenage. And just see how you get on. Me and him clicked like that. And then, obviously, AD come in, instilled confidence, right? You two are going to be the spearhead along with Darius Henderson. And then the rest is history. And then he's gone on to captain Man United, England, and obviously he's at Man United now. So, say for you youngsters, never ever give up, because I said he could have turned his back on the game and made an excuse and gone the other way. And so that's, I don't know, that's another little bit of an insight to the mindset of never give up, keep knocking on the door, you know?
Do you credit Andy Brufroyd with giving him that platform? No doubt he walked through the door and did the hard work. Do you give Adi Bruford the credit in having the benefit of hindsight and the passion and the integrity to give him it once?
Yeah, you speak to everybody about it. Adi Bruford is like my second dad. I speak to him even up to today, and it's obviously he's manager of England under 21s. With another manager who I really got on with, Gareth Southgate, is England manager. You see the job that they're doing here. They're bringing through youngsters and they're instilling in man management. It's not just about tactics. It's about getting to know a player as a person, how to get the best out of them, when to put the arm around them, when not to. And you ask a lot of players about AD. His attention to details. We used to do debriefs on Sundays, and it was like, Gaffer, come on. But you know, like even when we beat Leeds in the playoff final, he took us to the Millennium Stadium 2 days before, walked us around the stadium, played us Al Pacino movies, Gladiator movies. We sat down and like every single detail, and he just knew how to get the best out of players. Even when I wanted to leave, the guy turned up to my house at like 1 o'clock in the morning. My missus wakes me up out of bed. No, don't. You know, like he was at my wedding, like dancing on his head with a tyro. He is that guy that, you know, you have that mentor, that one guy that you look up to. He is that guy that you can pick up the phone at any time, and you might not have spoken to him for 6 months, and you've got that instant connection with, even to this day, at being 40 years old. So he just knew how to get the best out of players, you know?
Now, you mentioned the win in the playoff final to get into the Premier League, but I think it's only right that we give that season a little bit of coverage, because it's a fantastic season in the club's history and a massive achievement in your own personal career. What was your season highlights from that year? Can you remember some big moments?
Yeah, I think in terms of like we were written off. No, there's no two ways about it, James, right? We were like relegation favourites. If you look at odds, we were supposed to go down, right? And the players that he brought in, like Jordan Stewart, Anthony McNamee, Jay Merritt, Clark Carlisle, Malky Mackay, Ben Foster. Like Ben was an unknown, like Fozzie was an unknown quantity. Like all the players that he put together were either breaking through at big clubs or trying to get away, or players that had a good career or on their way out. He just meshed everyone together, and then he got the supporters believing again. And that was the biggest thing, because the supporters, you know, Danny Webber, Heide Helgeson went to Fulham, like all the fans' favourites kind of left. So he came in as an unknown quantity, and then brought in players like Darius Henderson, who was at Gillingham and Mill, didn't, you know, scored a lot of goals, but lost in the playoffs at lower leagues. Like players where it wasn't, the players that he was signing weren't exciting for the fans at the time. And it wasn't until pre-season and in the first few games where the fans started picking up momentum to say, you know what, I think we got something here. Then he started making additions. He started putting pieces to the puzzle, and we understood how he worked and stuff like that. And Adrian Mariappa Maps, I speak to, he's another guy, like, he's gone on to have a good Premier League career. He was just like a youngster in the change room. Like, that was just, he was one of the most annoying defenders. I tell him all the time that I spoke to him the other day. I said, Maps, Like, he used to kick the shit out of me for no reason. And we had a game the next day, and he was like, I had to do it for his. He said to me, I had to do it for my mental belief. Like, I didn't mean anything against it, but you know, that season was just from the canteen woman to the masseur to the kitman. Everyone had a bond. We all listened to the same tunes. We was just all one. The fans, it was just, you know, and Watford is a real family club. Even if you look at them now, family club, and everyone gets behind each other, you know. So that season was unreal.
You guys finished third in the league, then having to play Crystal Palace in the semi-final playoffs. Pick me up from that moment. Pick me up from there. What would Adi Buford said to you guys coming into that semi-final first leg?
I think where we had beaten those teams already in the league, he was kind of like, well, you've done it already. Why would you stall now, kind of thing? This is just another league game. Why would you, don't make the occasion get the better of you? Well, you beaten Palace, I think, home and away. And we're talking about, if you're talking about the Championship and talking about players, it was like Palace had like Joby McIntosh, Clinton Morrison, Andy Johnson, Darren Ward. You had like so many, Darren Ambrose. You had so many quality players, like Premier League players. And then if you look at like Sheffield United, you had Neil Warnock as a manager, Jagielka. Who did you interview the other day?
Paul Eiffel.
Paul Eiffel. So many quality players in that kind of hub. Even when you go back to QPR, you had Rob Hulse, you had so many. That league that season was strong. So it weren't for the weak-hearted. It was like you had players that still went on to have really, really great, like the Wolves team, Jolan Lescott. Like so many. It was just a league full of players that were destined to play in the Premier League in that season. So his mindset was, if we beat them now, there's no difference, and we've got nothing to lose because everybody's expecting us to lose. So let's just go out there and rip it up. And when we got in the tunnel, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos, we mentally beat people up in the tunnel before we even kicked the ball. It was like, work time, work. It was like proper amped. It was loud as me. There was Youngie. Jordan was like, and then you had like, later on, you had like Big Dan shit walking up and down, like some big McGibbon just walking up and everybody went into their shell. Everyone, they had Jay DeMeritt, like, work time with his American accent. And you could just feel teams mentally shrink. You know, and he taught us that like we are going to win the game before we've actually played the game. And that was kind of the whole mindset, you know.
I always think if you can't go through as champions, it must be more exciting to get promoted through the playoffs. It's just like a huge moment for the team and for the fans and the players. Talk me through playoff final day, the excitement, the build-up, everything that went hand in hand with such a big occasion.
It was, and it came even down to like the wives and stuff, because Leeds are a massive club, and anyone associated Leeds or played for Leeds or watched Leeds, you know they are, or they feel, they make their presence known, which, you know, they got a rich history and it's a massive club, great city. They almost took over. Well, they did. They took over the players' lounge and the wives were there. And it was almost like a foregone conclusion when the playoffs happened. And they had more tickets than us and more supporters come to the game than us. But what we had as Watford fans and Watford players is that unity. We didn't think it was a foregone conclusion. We knew that they weren't leaving there with taking away what we worked through the whole season for. And that was our mindset. We were like, listen, we don't give a damn. It could have been Man United, but our mindset was like, we are cracking on 11v11, your supporters against our supporters. If the wives have it out in the bar or the players' lounge, I expect my missus to come out of there unscathed. That was the kind of mindset, James. We were like, so we took that into the game, and then the start when big JD, he got the header, and then Chambers scored his goal, and Hendo at the end was just the way to win it. The whole lead up from the playoffs to beat two of the strongest teams in the league. If you're going to talk about teams getting promoted, it would have been Palace, Sheffield United, or Reading, and Leeds. And we were kind of like sniffing in and out, and we came out on top. But we smoked the playoffs, and we smoked the final as well. And that was the most beautiful for me.
At what point did he make you guys watch the film Gladiator? When was that given to you? Would that be the night before? Would that be on the morning of the game? When would you guys have taken that in?
No, it was about 2 days. He got us down into Cardiff about 3 days before the game. And we stayed in a hotel, and then they laid out some table because all of us boys like playing table tennis. So in the hallways and the corridors of the hotels, we had a hotel to ourselves. We got table tennis out, and the boys are playing. And then he will take us when we do our debrief after he will have like a movie night, and then we put on Gladiator, and then obviously the speech of that. And then I think it was what's the film with Any Given Sunday? That's another movie he played as well. When Al Pacino gave that speech, he played that the day before the game. And you could just feel it. Like, he gave a speech before the game, before the movie goes, listen, guys, I don't want you to watch this movie thinking that I'm just putting up for no reason and X, Y, Z. Then he played it. And a lot of the guys hadn't seen it at that time. And then he played it, and it was like, we left there. And we went to bed, and he played it about 9 o'clock at night. And we went to bed knowing the task at hand. We knew how this can change everybody's lives. That was the message that was put across to us.
When that final whistle went, what goes through your mind as a player? I know it's an obvious question, but for the whole family and the whole environment, what goes through your mind?
I think if you watch the video, I collapsed on the floor. I just started crying. If you watch it, the boys started jumping on me, and I just started crying. And I think it wasn't even like I was like upset. It was just through like tears of joy, knowing that every single game that we put in and everything that we done had paid off, and that it was not just my life, but everybody else's life around us was going to change for the better, you know. And so many people were achieving their dream of playing in the Premiership for the first time in their life. So, yeah, if you watch the video, I just collapsed, and it wasn't even like I just collapsed, broke down in tears, and I was blubbering like a baby.
What was the celebrations like? What was the party like, and how long did the celebrations last for?
Well, I can say that after all the wives and that, we had the hotel, so we just had a big do, and everybody was just drinking, and it was just so much good vibes. And then obviously we got the coach back to Watford. I think where it hit us was when we got on the coach and we went through Watford, and it was just like, I don't know, maybe 100,000 people. I don't know how many people were just in the streets, and we're just on the top of the bus, and like, it was goosebumps. So it's like because after the game you're tired. You kind of the adrenaline. You know when the adrenaline rushes out at you, you kind of relax. So we kind of parted. We parted, but the reality of what we achieved didn't hit us until we got back to Hertfordshire, and it was like everyone was just in Watford shirts and King shirts and Young shirts, and it was just wow. Okay, next season it's the Prem, it's the big league. So,
was there a moment where you took to pinch yourself and the realization that you had or will become a Premier League player? The pinnacle of everything you've been working for in your professional
when I collapsed, James, I'll be honest with you, bro. When I collapsed, it was kind of like, wow. I just collapsed. If you go to the video, you see me. I just collapsed on the floor, and it was like I started crying like a baby because I was one of those kids. I never really spoke to people about my emotions. It was more like I'm alright kind of lad sort of mindset. So I never really, whether it be ups, whether it be downs, I never really kind of spoke about that. So that there wasn't just about what I achieved there on the pitch. It was like the whole journey. It just exploded on that pitch. And you see guys jumping on my back and celebrating and stuff, and I just had my hand on my head like this, just because it was surreal. To be fair, you know, even when you bring it up and when you talk about it, it's surreal moments, man. It's like moments that you'll never forget, you know.